James the Ghost Malone were names whispered in fear across Liverpool's underground, untouchable figures running the city's most secretive drug rings through encrypted phones. But behind the codes and shadows, the police were closing in on a breakthrough that would expose everything. Liverpool's criminal underworld was a place wrapped in shadows, where secrets were currency and silence was law. For years, police had been chasing ghosts, drug dealers and gang leaders who operated with surgical precision, leaving no trace behind. Their communications were impossible to crack, their movements always a step ahead of law enforcement. The reason for this invisibility was a technology few outside the criminal world truly understood: encrypted phones. Among them, one stood above all others: EncroChat. EncroChat was no ordinary phone system. It promised privacy like no other, with messages that disappeared, connections that were impossible to trace, and security so tight it was believed to be unbreakable. It became the go-to tool for criminals across Europe, but especially in Liverpool, where drug rings flourished in silence, confident their secrets were safe. These devices created a digital fortress, shielding dealers from police surveillance and allowing the drug trade to thrive under the radar. The scale of the problem was staggering. These phones linked a vast network of dealers, couriers, and kingpins, all operating in a careful dance of coded language and secure channels. Police had some suspects, but without access to their conversations, the picture was incomplete. Arrests were made on small-scale operations, but the masterminds stayed protected, their identities hidden behind layers of encryption. For law enforcement, EncroChat was a wall they couldn't break through. The frustration was palpable. Every tip, every stakeout, led to dead ends. Behind those encrypted screens, the criminals grew bolder. Violence escalated. Territories shifted, and drugs flooded the streets of Liverpool with alarming ease. The encrypted phones weren't just tools. They were shields that turned the city's drug trade into a ghost story, one where the villains seemed untouchable. But as the digital fortress stood tall, unknown to the gangs, police were quietly working on a breakthrough. What they didn't know yet was that this fortress had a secret vulnerability, one that would soon expose the darkest corners of Liverpool's criminal underworld. The stage was set for a takedown that would change everything. Despite years of surveillance and investigation, the true scale of Liverpool's drug empire remained a mystery. Police had gathered pieces of the puzzle, a suspicious meeting here, a hidden stash there, but they could never connect the dots fully. The encrypted phones created an invisible web, a network so carefully guarded that even the best detectives struggled to see beyond the surface. It was as if the city's criminal underworld operated in a parallel universe, hidden from view yet pulsing with activity. EncroChat had woven a tight web between drug dealers, smugglers, and enforcers, stretching far beyond Liverpool's boundaries. Messages traveled instantly, orders were given with precision, and operations were coordinated with military-like efficiency. But all of this happened out of sight, shielded by the nearly impenetrable encryption that scrambled every message, making it impossible for police to eavesdrop. The gang members used code words and symbols to keep their conversations hidden even from each other, creating layers of secrecy within secrecy. This invisible network wasn't just about drug deals. It was a sophisticated machine that controlled supply chains, money laundering, and even violent enforcement. The encrypted phones connected kingpins who never met face-to-face with those on the streets distributing drugs. Orders were passed along like a relay race, leaving little evidence at every stage. The police could arrest low-level dealers, but the masterminds always remained distant, protected by this digital armor. For law enforcement, it was a frustrating game of guesswork. They knew the network was there, but without access to the conversations, it was impossible to predict moves or uncover hidden alliances. The encrypted system gave criminals confidence to expand, and Liverpool's streets became more dangerous, as rival gangs fought to control more territory. Behind closed doors, the police worked tirelessly to find a way inside this invisible network. They monitored movements, gathered intelligence, and built profiles, hoping for a breakthrough. What they didn't realize was that the key to unraveling this hidden world was already within reach: and that soon the digital fortress would start to crumble from the inside out, exposing the secrets the gangs thought were forever safe. For years, the police faced a wall they couldn't break. EncroChat's encryption was believed to be foolproof, a digital fortress protecting criminals from every angle. No matter how hard investigators tried, they couldn't intercept messages or trace calls. The encrypted phones gave Liverpool's most dangerous criminals a shield, a sense of security that made them almost untouchable. But behind the scenes, law enforcement agencies across Europe were quietly working on a way to crack this seemingly impenetrable code. The breakthrough didn't happen overnight. It was the result of years of international cooperation, technical innovation, and patient advocacy. Specialists in cybercrime worked tirelessly, analyzing every detail of the EncroChat system. They discovered subtle weaknesses in how the network operated, flaws that had gone unnoticed by the criminals who trusted it completely. These vulnerabilities became the cracks in the fortress's foundation. When European authorities finally managed to infiltrate EncroChat, it sent shockwaves through the criminal world. Suddenly, encrypted messages, once thought unreadable, were flowing into police databases in real time. Investigators could see conversations, track movements, and understand the language of the gangs like never before. For the first time, the invisible web that connected Liverpool's drug rings became visible. Liverpool's police, working alongside international partners, prepared for a large-scale operation. The flood of information was overwhelming, but invaluable. It painted a clear picture of the city's criminal landscape, revealing who was behind the deals, who controlled the shipments, and where the drugs were stored. The encrypted phones that once hid criminals now exposed them, turning their own technology into a trap. This moment marked the beginning of a new chapter in the fight against organized crime in Liverpool. The digital fortress that had protected the city's drug trade for years was no longer impenetrable. With access to the encrypted messages, police held a powerful tool, one that could bring down the most secretive and dangerous gangs Liverpool had ever seen. The stage was set for a takedown unlike anything the city had experienced before. With the EncroChat messages decrypted and pouring in, Liverpool's police knew they had a rare opportunity to strike a decisive blow against the city's most secretive drug rings. The operation was codenamed ShadowNet, a carefully planned campaign designed to dismantle the entire network from the inside out. It was a massive and complex task, requiring coordination between multiple departments, surveillance teams, and international partners. Officers worked around the clock, analyzing the flood of intercepted messages. Each conversation revealed new locations, names, and plans. Safe houses were identified, drug shipments scheduled, and gang hierarchies exposed. Police moved swiftly to organize raids, knowing the element of surprise was critical. One wrong move could alert the criminals, causing them to destroy evidence or disappear before the law could catch them. The first wave of raids hit unexpected targets across Liverpool. Officers stormed quiet residential buildings, warehouses tucked away in industrial zones, and hidden compartments in plain sight. Behind each door, they found mountains of drugs, weapons, and cash, proof of the scale and sophistication of the operations they were up against. The suspects had believed they were untouchable, their encrypted phones keeping them safe. Now, that illusion shattered. ShadowNet wasn't just about arrests, it was about disruption. Police seized phones, documents, and ledgers, crippling the gang's ability to communicate and operate. The atmosphere was tense. Every move was calculated. Every step weighed against the risk of alerting the wider network. Yet, despite the pressure, officers pressed forward, knowing this could be the breakthrough needed to change the city's criminal landscape forever. As the raids continued, police uncovered layers of deception and careful planning within the gangs. Rival factions were exposed, alliances fractured, and hidden figures brought into the spotlight. The encrypted phones had not only protected these criminals but also revealed their weaknesses once decrypted. The takedown was a high-stakes game of chess, with lives and reputations on the line. But with the digital fortress breached, Liverpool's police had the advantage. Operation ShadowNet was just beginning, and its success would depend on maintaining the element of surprise as the net tightened around the city's most dangerous criminals. As the police sifted through the decrypted EncroChat messages, they discovered a world far darker and more complicated than they had imagined. The conversations were filled not only with drug deals and money transfers, but also with threats, betrayals, and plans for violence. The gang members' carefully constructed code of silence began to crumble under the weight of the evidence now in the hands of law enforcement. Hidden within the encrypted texts were details about internal power struggles. Rival factions within the drug rings fought for control of territory and resources, often with deadly consequences. Messages revealed plots to eliminate rivals and even betray longtime allies. These conflicts had remained invisible to the police before, but now the chaos at the heart of Liverpool's criminal world was clear. The encrypted phones had once been a shield, but they had also recorded the gang's secrets. Police used the information to predict violent outbreaks and intercept shipments before they reached the streets. It became clear that the gang's confidence in their encrypted communications had been misplaced. The cracks in their code of silence were widening, and fear began to spread among the criminals. This new insight allowed the police to stay several steps ahead. They identified key players who had previously operated in the shadows, and tracked the flow of drugs and money with unprecedented accuracy. The encrypted messages revealed where shipments were hidden, who was responsible for distributing them, and even the routes they took across the city. With every new piece of information, the police dismantled the gang's networks bit by bit. The internal betrayals revealed through the messages created opportunities for officers to exploit divisions, turning gang members against each other. The once impenetrable web began to unravel. The power struggle and violence exposed in the messages showed the dangerous lengths the criminals would go to protect their empire. But as the code of silence cracked, it became clear that their downfall was inevitable. What had once been a fortress of secrecy was now a source of destruction from within. The encrypted phones that had given them power now sealed their fate. At the heart of Liverpool's sprawling drug network was a figure shrouded in mystery, a kingpin known only by his encrypted code name. For years he had stayed invisible, controlling operations without ever being seen or directly linked to criminal activities. His power came from staying in the shadows, communicating through layers of encrypted messages that made him nearly impossible to trace. But as police decrypted more conversations, his carefully guarded identity began to unravel. The messages revealed his reach and ruthlessness. He coordinated shipments, negotiated deals with international contacts, and ordered violent reprisals against anyone who threatened his empire. The kingpin's network spanned the city, with loyal enforcers ensuring his orders were carried out without question. He was the mastermind behind the drug rings that had plagued Liverpool for years, the true architect of the underground empire. Police painstakingly pieced together his location and movements, planning an operation that had to be flawless. The stakes were high. If he escaped, the entire investigation could collapse. After weeks of surveillance, the moment finally came. Officers surrounded a nondescript property on the outskirts of Liverpool, waiting for the right time to act. The arrest was tense and fast. The kingpin tried to flee, sparking a desperate chase through narrow streets and alleyways. It was a dangerous pursuit that tested the skill and courage of the officers involved. But in the end, he was caught, ending years of evasion and silence. His capture sent shockwaves through the city's criminal world, proving that no one was beyond the reach of the law. The arrest wasn't just a victory for the police, it was a turning point in the investigation. With the kingpin in custody, officers gained access to his encrypted devices and personal contacts. More secrets came to light, revealing the depth of corruption and control he had exerted over Liverpool's drug trade. The fall of this elusive leader marked the beginning of the end for the city's most secretive gangs. It showed that even the most powerful criminals could be brought down when their digital fortress was finally breached. Liverpool had taken a crucial step toward reclaiming its streets. Among the many gang members caught in the wave of arrests following the EncroChat Takedown, one unexpected figure emerged as a crucial turning point. A lower-level dealer who decided to cooperate with the police. This individual, once loyal to the kingpin and the gang's code, was motivated by fear and the hope of survival. Facing lengthy prison time and threats from within the criminal world, the decision to become an informant changed the course of the investigation. This insider held knowledge that went far beyond what encrypted messages could reveal. While the phones showed carefully coded conversations, informant provided real-life context, names behind the codes, hidden meeting places, and the ways the gangs adapted to avoid detection. Their cooperation gave police a rare glimpse into the human side of the operation, exposing vulnerabilities that no technology alone could uncover. The informant's information also confirmed suspicions that some gang members were already nervous, unsure whom to trust as arrests spread. This fragile trust inside the gangs became a key advantage for law enforcement. Using the informant's insights, police were able to identify potential weak links and anticipate betrayals before they happened. The path of working with the informant wasn't easy. Trust had to be built carefully, with constant concern about the risks involved. Every piece of information was weighed for accuracy and reliability. But as the informant revealed more details, the investigation gained momentum. The cooperation helped uncover hidden alliances and exposed new players who had previously escaped attention. This unexpected ally became a silent weapon in the police's arsenal, bridging the gap between encrypted data and real-world action. Their courage to break the code of silence from within the gang was a turning point in the takedown. It showed that even in a world ruled by secrecy and fear, cracks could appear and that those cracks could be exploited to bring down the most secretive and dangerous criminals in Liverpool. The story of this informant reminded investigators that behind every encrypted message, there were people with fears, loyalties, and the potential to change the game. Their cooperation was a critical piece of the puzzle that helped turn a digital breakthrough into real justice. As the investigation into Liverpool's drug rings deepened, an unsettling truth began to surface: corruption within the police force itself. Some officers had been quietly tipping off criminals about the ongoing operation, risking the entire takedown. This betrayal threatened to unravel months of careful planning and hard-won progress. The discovery came as a shock. For a long time, trust within the force had been strong, but the sale of the criminal networks meant temptations were high. Some officers had grown close to suspects, accepting bribes or favors in exchange for information. These leaks compromised the secrecy of the operation, allowing key suspects to change plans or disappear just before raids. The police leadership acted swiftly. Internal affairs teams launched covert investigations to identify the corrupt officers. Strict measures were put in place to safeguard sensitive information, limiting access and monitoring communication channels. The need to protect the operation added an extra layer of complexity to an already intense investigation. This internal threat made every step forward more dangerous. Officers conducting raids and arrests had to wonder who might be watching and feeding information to the criminals. Trust became fragile, and teamwork was tested as the force worked to root out corruption while continuing the takedown. The corruption also shed light on why some parts of the network had remained untouched for so long. It became clear that the criminals had allies inside the system, giving them warnings and protecting their interests. This inside help explained how certain shipments moved smoothly despite police surveillance and why some raids failed to catch the most important targets. Addressing the corruption was essential not only for the success of Operation ShadowNet, but also for restoring public confidence in law enforcement. The police realized that to win this fight, they had to be as ruthless with their own as they were with the criminals. In the end, rooting out corruption strengthened the investigation. It ensured that the digital fortress breached by the EncroChat Takedown could no longer be supported by inside help. This chapter in the story revealed the high stakes involved, battling crime on two fronts, both outside and within the police force itself. The impact of the EncroChat Takedown rippled far beyond the immediate arrests and seizures in Liverpool. Once the city's most secretive drug rings were exposed and their leaders removed, the criminal landscape began to shift in unpredictable ways. The power vacuum left by the arrests triggered a wave of chaos, as rival gangs scrambled to claim territory and rebuild their networks. Without the encrypted phones to coordinate their activities, many gangs struggled to maintain control. Some attempted to switch to alternative communication methods, but none were as secure or efficient as EncroChat had been. This scramble led to confusion and mistrust within and between gangs, sparking violent clashes as factions fought to assert dominance. The disruption also caused changes in drug supply routes. With Liverpool's traditional networks under pressure, new routes emerged, some involving different cities and even international connections. The takedown forced criminals to adapt quickly, making the drug trade more unpredictable and harder to monitor. While the arrests weakened the major players, smaller groups seized the opportunity to expand. These new actors brought fresh challenges for law enforcement, as they were often more fragmented and less predictable. The criminal ecosystem became more complex, requiring police to adjust strategies and increase surveillance in new areas. Violence surged in the months following the takedown. Rivalries that had been suppressed by the dominant gangs flared up, leading to shootings and public disorder. The city's streets felt the strain as communities were caught in the crossfire of this shifting underworld. At the same time, the operation sent a strong message that no criminal network was untouchable. The success of the EncroChat Takedown inspired other law enforcement agencies to pursue similar tactics, signaling a new era in the fight against organized crime. This chapter of Liverpool's story showed that disrupting the drug trade was only the beginning. The fallout revealed how deeply embedded and adaptable these networks were. It also highlighted the ongoing battle between police and criminals, a struggle that would continue to evolve as both sides adjusted to the new reality created by the takedown. The ripple effect of this operation was a reminder that in the fight against crime, every victory brought new challenges. With EncroChat dismantled and Liverpool's most secretive drug rings exposed, the landscape of crime and law enforcement was forever changed. The takedown marked a major victory, but it also raised new questions about the future of crime fighting in a world where technology evolves faster than ever before. Criminals, now stripped of one of their most powerful tools, were already searching for new ways to stay hidden and continue their operations. Encrypted communication would not disappear. It would only become more sophisticated. Police knew that the next generation of criminal networks would likely turn to different, perhaps even more secure methods to evade detection. This pushed law enforcement to rethink their approach, not just reacting to crimes after they happened, but developing proactive strategies to stay ahead in the digital arms race. New technology was both a challenge and an opportunity. Advances in artificial intelligence, data analysis, and digital forensics gave police more powerful tools to track suspicious activity, analyze patterns, and uncover hidden connections. But criminals were also innovating, using these technologies to cover their tracks or exploit weaknesses in security systems. The EncroChat Takedown highlighted the importance of international cooperation. Criminal networks rarely respected borders, and breaking down their communication systems required teamwork between countries, agencies, and experts. Going forward, this global collaboration would be vital in tackling crime that increasingly operated across continents. At the same time, concerns about privacy and surveillance intensified. As law enforcement gained access to encrypted data, debates arose over how to balance public safety with individual rights. Finding this balance became one of the biggest challenges in modern policing. For Liverpool, the operation was a reminder of the ongoing fight beneath the surface. The city's streets might have been quieter, but the war on crime was far from over. The takedown was a significant step, but it also showed that criminals adapt and evolve, meaning law enforcement must do the same. In the end, the EncroChat Takedown was a story of persistence, innovation, and the delicate battle between criminals and those who seek justice. It was proof that no fortress, no matter how secure, is truly impenetrable, and that the future of crime fighting would be defined by who could adapt fastest in a world where secret